In this show, I'm talking about weight gain foods for toddlers, and especially if you've got a skinny one, we're going to talk about tips for feeding toddlers who need to gain weight, and I'm going to highlight a few foods that'll help you along the way. I'm Jill Castle. Welcome to my channel. Today, I'm digging into this whole idea of the underweight toddler and what we can do to help them, and that is specifically using foods, real foods, that will promote weight gain. Before I get going, I just want to remind you to subscribe to my channel. I'm always talking about child nutrition, how to feed kids in positive ways, and really just giving you the insight on nourishing the baby, the toddler, the child, and the teenager. So subscribe below. Today, I'm covering some tips and some foods, weight gain foods for toddlers that will help your toddler gain weight better and grow better. I'll cover how to know if your toddler is underweight or too thin. I'll talk about tips for foods that you can offer your toddler to increase the over-calorie density of his diet. And last, I'll give you tips for how to feed toddlers so that it's easier to help them gain weight. So number one, how do you know if your toddler is underweight? Well, there are a couple of signs that are pretty easy to highlight. And I know this in particular because I was a mom of a toddler who was underweight at a very young age. And you can look at their appearance, the way they look. A toddler who has a very thin neck or bony shoulders, rib cages, you can see the rib cage bones, arms and legs just really on the thinner side. Perhaps the joints protrude, the elbow joints or the knee joints. Typically for a toddler, you're going to see more body fat. You'll see a protruded tummy. That's very natural for a toddler. And you'll see little pads of fat all over their body. But in the thin, underweight toddler, you won't see so much extra fat on them. They'll appear pretty lean. The other way that you can tell if a toddler is underweight or too thin is by looking at the growth chart. So your pediatrician keeps a growth chart on your child, and every year you go in for a checkup, you'll be able to look at that growth chart. That's why they weigh and measure your child every year. For the child who might be underweight or too thin, you'll see on the growth chart a curve that is the weight curve. And children should be growing along their weight curve at a very predictable rate. And you'll be able to see the little plotations or the plots. Plotations, is that a word? You'll see the plots of where the weight is on the curve. And generally over time, those plots will follow a channel on the growth chart. And they'll stay inside the parameters of that channel. So we have channels that go from the 5th percentile to the 10th percentile on the growth curve, from the 10th to the 25th, from the 25th to the 50th, 50th to the 75th, 75th to the 85th, 85th to the 95th. And then beyond the 95th and below the 5th are sort of outliers. Below the 5th would indicate a very underweight child. Above the 95th might indicate a child who carries extra body fat. So you can look at your toddler's growth chart and really see how he or she is tracking over time. What we want to see, as I mentioned, is that those little dots on the growth chart are tracking along the same growth channel. What we don't want to see is those dots or those points in time, those weight measurements falling outside of the channel. And if they're falling below the channel where they have been for a while, that would indicate weight loss. That would indicate that your child isn't gaining weight appropriately and may indicate that his overall growth has slowed down. So again, just to reiterate, you want to look at the growth chart from your pediatrician visits, and what you want to see is your child's weight tracking on the same growth channel over time. If you see it's falling off, that's a sign that your child has lost weight. The other thing I want to talk about is the foods that you can use to help toddlers gain weight. And there are lots of foods. I'm not going to go through all the foods, but I did want to go through some of the highlights in each food category to help you make decisions about the foods that you offer the underweight toddler. So the first category, let's talk about dairy. So dairy foods like milk and yogurt or cheese or cottage cheese. These are foods that can come in varying calorie levels. And you can have really high calorie dairy products and you can have very low calorie dairy products. For the toddler who's underweight, we want to focus on the high calorie dairy products. So things like whole milk yogurt, full fat cheeses, and things of that nature. Cottage cheese with the highest percentage of milk fat. I believe it's around 4 or 5%. These products are going to carry more calories for your toddler, and that's because they have more fat. And fat in general carries more calories than any other nutrient that we have. So we have protein, fat, and carbohydrate. Fat carries the most calories. So of course, when we're thinking about dairy foods, we want to focus on those dairy foods that are going to be high sources of fat because they give your toddler an extra calorie boost. Let's talk about vegetables. I think a lot of parents who have underweight toddlers really worry about their toddler not eating properly across the board, but they do worry about getting their toddler to eat vegetables. Well, that's another subject, and I will cover that subject in the future, so be sure to subscribe to this channel so you get notification when that video comes out. But for today, let's talk about vegetables in the context of high calories. So you probably have heard of the term starchy vegetables. So starchy vegetables like corn and peas and potatoes. Those are high calorie containing vegetables, and those are the ones we want to focus on. So serving your toddler corn on the cob or frozen corn that you've reheated and perhaps tossed in butter. The same with frozen peas or fresh peas or even canned peas. Any of those are going to be a higher calorie vegetable than some of the other things like lettuce or cucumbers, for example. You could argue this is a fruit, but this is an avocado, and avocados are a great source of healthy fats, and they have a lot of calories. So a piece of toast spread with smashed avocado can give your toddler a lot of extra calories in their diet. The next category is the fruit category or the fruit group. And fruit is naturally low in calories, just like vegetables, but there are certain fruits that are a little bit higher in calories. Take the banana, for example. Bananas have a little bit more in terms of nutrient and calorie density than something like a clementine, for example. Another fruit that is good for calories are mangoes. Mangoes have a little bit of an extra boost of calories, and they're quite tasty. They're one of my favorite fruits on the planet. The other type of fruits is using dried fruits. So things like raisins. If your child likes dried plums, dried apricots, dried mango are also great ideas for a little bit more of a calorie boost. Now, they're not going to give you a huge amount of extra calories, but they are going to make a difference if you're selecting these a little bit more frequently throughout the week. Protein foods are another food group where you can build in a few more calories. Think about chicken. A chicken breast is going to be very lean, or a chicken tender will be very lean, but if you serve a drumstick with the skin on it, that's going to be higher in calories. Dark meat, chicken and turkey is higher in calories than their white meat counterpart. So choose foods or meats, protein sources that are a little higher in calories. Ground beef is another good example. You can get really lean ground beef, 90% lean, or you can get the 80% lean ground beef. And the 80% is going to carry more calories because they leave more fat in it. So that's some sources of protein foods. I have one more for you. Hang on. This one is a kid's favorite, peanut butter. Peanut butter has a little bit of protein, a lot of fat, and it's a great way to get extra calories in for your toddler who might be underweight or too thin. The same goes with other nut butters like almond butter or cashew butter. And in fact, you can serve nuts as long as you're chopping them up and your toddler can handle nuts okay. Serving cashews or peanuts or chopped crushed almonds or walnuts are another great way to build in more calories. I've known myself to smash up walnuts pretty finely and mix them into cereal. You can throw a few whole nuts into smoothies that you're making, or even make it easier and just throw a glob of peanut butter into a smoothie. That will help build in extra calories. And how about that grain food group? Well, this one is usually an easy group for toddlers to eat. We're talking cereals and toast and crackers and bagels and rice and pasta. Toddlers tend to like those foods, so try to pick the higher calorie ones, the buttery crackers instead of the plain crackers. Try to choose the higher calorie cereals like granola. Granola is going to be a higher calorie cereal, or a cereal that has dried fruit in it, like a Raisin Bran. Those are going to supply more calories. Don't forget to dress your rice in butter, your pasta in oils. Just give it a little coating to boost more calories into those foods, which will help over time, and in combination with some of those other food group suggestions, that will help get more calories into your toddler. And last, just some general feeding tips when you have an underweight toddler. I learned this the hard way with my first child who was underweight and a picky eater. There's some different little strategies that you want to do. Number one, don't put too much pressure on yourself to get the calories into your child, because if you do, that's going to translate to pressure on your toddler to eat. And we know pressure to eat doesn't work very well with choosy children. So don't pressure too much. Really just do your job of serving your meals and your snacks and getting your child to the table. And then let your child navigate the eating part of feeding. Secondly, try to incorporate 3 meals, which you're probably already doing, but make sure you get 3 snacks in per day. So a mid-morning snack, a mid-afternoon snack, and a bedtime snack. That is just giving your child, your toddler, 6 opportunities to eat. And when we give 6 opportunities to eat throughout the day, we actually have a higher chance of meeting those calorie needs that our underweight toddlers need. I want to mention that bedtime snack again because I think that's a very important snack to make sure your toddler has before they go to bed. And that can be a cup of milk, or it can be a bowl of cereal with milk. It can be a slice of peanut butter toast. Just a little boost of real food, nutritious nutrition right before bedtime will help boost the calories in the overall day. And plus, think about it, your toddler's going to bed, they're going to sleep. Those calories are just going to sit there and do the job of helping your toddler gain weight. Last, remember the motto, pad with fat. Olive oil, butter, other vegetable oils, mayonnaise, sour cream, cheeses. All of these, when you add them to the foods that you're offering your toddler, take the calories up a notch. And when we take the calories up a notch, we're giving more calories throughout the day. So that's it, my friends. If you do have a toddler that you're struggling with, that they are underweight or too thin, and you need more information on weight gain foods for toddlers, head to my blog, thenourishedchild.com. You'll see an article. I'll post it in the description below where you can read more about this and get even more food suggestions to offer your toddler. If you're looking for inspiration for toddler snacks, I do have a free download. I'll include it in the description below where you can get more ideas for snacks for your toddler. And last, don't forget, I do have a book called The Smart Mom's Guide to Healthy Snacking, which will give you even more snack ideas, recipes for healthy snacks, and a system for making sure you're establishing healthy snack habits in your children. Thanks again for joining me. I'm Jill Castle. Welcome to my channel. See you next time. Please subscribe. Take care.